that Eli's really caught up here over the last week or so.
What has he done to really improve and make this a dead heat?
I think the first thing is he got healthy. He was struggling moving around in spring, because the hamstring. But also, as a young guy, he's very mature. And I think that's because of Nate. Nate's a very mature guy, man. Nate's a pro. So, if he wanted to compete for this job, he would have to attack every day like a coach and like a pro. And that's really what's caught him up. You don't see a lot of young guys his age coming with the mentality of, just, hey, I got to work just as hard. I got to put the work in. I got to be up here watching film and studying. And I think that's kind of what, got him caught up because, he was a little bit behind after spring ball.
How have you seen the offensive linemen adjust to this faster-paced scheme? And, because I know when I talked to Coach Darbo on Media Day, he said when he's recruiting with you guys would recruit fast and athletic guys and put weight on and play offensive line. And obviously these guys were recruited for a pro style. So how have you seen them develop?
Yeah, it's just a totally different game, like last year, obviously, more huddle. When we got here, we had to get the guys' weight down. I mean, we had a lot of guys that were overweight and not just overweight, but the type of game run, they played last year was, hey, huddle, 20, 30 seconds, and they come off the football downhill, right? So I think when we first got here it was tough because, it's different, man, when you got a chance to, you can snap the ball in 7 seconds, 7 to, 15 seconds at any time, So, but you know what? They work their butts off. I mean, look at a lot of guys that change their bodies into what we want. Being athletic, being twitchy, being able to get in your stance fast and not, and not take a deep breath, right? Those guys have really put the work in, and all it's done is just now made us where our tempo is so much better from spring. I mean, you look at just when we want to go fast, like our center is bam, he's on the ball, he's making the calls. The linemen are getting in their stance. They're not, waddling around, because they're not used to it. Now they know the expectation of when the ball's supposed to get snapped when we do want to go fast. And so, but we got good leadership in that room. You got Branson, who's a senior, Jacoby, who hasn't played much because he was hurt last year, but he played a lot on the 21 team when they won here. Those guys are great leaders, and then I think Cooper's became a great leader since he's taken over the center job. So they work their butts off. Linemen don't say much, so I enjoy being around those guys.
7 seconds, like a record, for you guys to run these kind of offense?
No, the goal, look at the fastest teams in the country, like last year, obviously, the USFs, the Tennessees, some of the teams around the country, the air raid teams, the up-tempo vertical option teams, they average around 20 seconds per snap when you add in third downs and all the situational football 4 minute, right? Basically, they average around 20 seconds per snap. But if you look at when they snap it the fastest, you want to be able to snap the ball in 7 seconds, or less. That's kind of the goal. And we'll have clips. We keep up every day. We have someone keeping the time of how many times do we snap the ball 7 seconds or less? How many times do we snap it 15 seconds or less, or 12 seconds or less, right? And then how many times do we snap it 23 seconds or less, right? So we keep up with a percentage of, hey, are we snapping the ball 60% of the time at this speed? Are we snapping it, 50% this day, 40%? And sometimes it depends on red zone or third downs, right? If it's going to go, if we're going to take a little bit longer or go a little bit faster, right? So, we're always trying to keep up and always trying to push the point on that,
If I asked you what percentage was the highest, would that be revealing too much information?
Yeah, I don't want to say that, And to me, you'll watch us play. Some games we'll play really, really fast, and some games we'll play, fast, and some games we'll play medium, and some games we might, do more different stuff, It all depends on how can we score points, right? Like, I'm not this type of coach. I grew up my dad played, like I said, professional football. I grew up in a pro-high household. I love NFL football, right? So I grew up in the point of, hey, how efficiently can we score points, right? And I'm not one of these guys that, hey, we have to get 90 snaps a game. If we don't get 90 snaps a game, it's not good enough, I want to be a guy who, hey, what do we got to do to put the players in position that week to win the game and score points? And I think that's something that I've always kind of, build on, and I make sure I'm game playing the right way to do that.
What's your biggest fear?
Biggest fear? Any offense, I think any team is staying healthy. When you have a great year, man, usually you're healthy, right? You stay healthy. Like in 18, we won national championship, man. We had one starter out at skill position for 3 or 4 games, and we had one lineman out for 2 games, right? We played 14 games. We were a healthy team. Our best players were on the field, guys that can make an impact, You look at last year at Western Carolina, the first 7 games, I mean, we were, leading the country in rushing and passing at one point. And we were super explosive, and we just had some some crazy injuries, that kind of hurt us up front. And then Desmond obviously being out, he was leading the country in rushing after his first 7 games. And then, he was out for 4 weeks. So, we just got, stay healthy. And if we do that, man, I feel good about our guys.
But execution-wise, what's your biggest fear?
Yeah, obviously, it's new, right? It's new, and you want perfection. That's what we're striving for every day, right? I think the biggest thing is understanding, what I want in games when it comes to, attacking defenses and what the expectation is for certain plays, right? Like when I'm game planning certain plays, what I want the quarterback to do. Same thing with the offensive line. Like when we call certain protections, what we're trying to get accomplished in that protection. Or same thing with the run game and RPOs. Like what are we trying to get it done, right? Like can we go out there and make adjustments, right? Like I think football's changed a lot. I think a lot of DCs are like offense coordinators now. It's not like the old days where, you line up and you get the same defenses, like DCs these days are young guys and they do a lot of creative things and sometimes they don't even do what they do on film, they're game planning you. So for me, I think the biggest thing for us is like with this roster, how fast can we adjust and make an adjustment after the first or second drive, right? Let's not wait till halftime. Now we have the iPads, which are awesome. How much faster can we make adjustments and get into the right plays or get into the right tempo to have success? And I think that's one of those things about to being consistent. You got to be able to make adjustments.
Spoke on Cooper winning the starting job at center. What allowed him to separate himself from Terrence?
I think the one thing about Cooper is he's just nasty, man. He's got some prick to him, and he can move. He's very athletic. Our center has to do a lot of things. He's got to be able to move, and Timo's gotten a lot better, man. He's worked his butt off. He's been in the meeting rooms, man. He knows basically every position too. But I think Cooper just has a lot of juice, and I think he can do some things athletically that we really like.
Hey, when I watch your offense, I see in the past years, I've seen running backs used in so many various ways as far as catching the ball. How Desmond's a guy that he's used to it, right?
Yeah.
How have guys like Rodney and Derek taken on learning that part of it? And how has Desmond led them in learning that part of the game?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think that's one of the biggest things. Run plays are run plays. Blocking schemes are blocking schemes. But having Desmond here, helping teach the passing game. Like understand the pass concepts, not just run concepts, right? And understand what we're looking for when we're reading, because like we're going to coach our butt off and we're going to be detailed. Like our running backs, we teach them read coverages and read levers. Like we're not just out there running routes. We're trying to develop them for the next level, right? So guys like Rodney, I think he's a 3-down back. Like I think he's a guy who can catch out of the backfield. He blocks well in protection. Like he's a guy who can do all three too, right? The guy that's really gotten so much better since January is Derek Davis. He was more just a downhill, straight line, big, fast guy. But you talk about a guy in the summer that's worked on catching the football, worked on running routes out of the backfield. He's been very consistent in that stuff, and he's also a very smart kid. So he pays attention. He takes really good notes, and he knows exactly what we want to do in the pass game, which is good. So, but to me, right? Like I might call, the game might be a little different who's in the game, right? I got to play to our guys' strengths, right? Like Rodney and Dez are different. Dez and Derek are different. Rodney and Derek are different, right? So, hey, whatever they've done well in camp, what plays they like, which run plays they like, which pass game, what they do in the pass game, right? Like I got to call the game for our players, not for me.
I know that Rodney and Dez are your 2 official starters with the Oars next. So how close is Derek to being in that mix as far as distribution of how much you use all 3 of them?
Yeah, we've always played multiple backs. We have to with our tempo. And just, to me, when it comes down to it too is you want to keep guys fresh, man. Like running back, y'all know how even in the NFL, right? Like they don't get paid a lot, right? It's a position where you got to keep guys fresh. You got to keep guys healthy. And if we're going to play a 12-game season, man, like we want running backs that run just as hard as they were week 1 as they are, week 12. So, Derek's right there, man. He's going to be a guy who's going to be on the field. We've played even last year and in years past. We've played around 2 to 3 backs every game, and that's the goal, right? And get them touches and get them in the right situation, right? Like when they're in the game, what's the best things they do well?
This isn't the first time you've had to translate your scheme to kind of a higher level of football.
Yeah.
What kind of has to happen when you take a leap up to hit the ground running?
I think the number one thing is I think skill players are skill players. I think if you look at, just football in general, right? Like, you got guys that can run, right? You got long guys that can make plays down the field in 50-50 balls, right? The size is different, obviously, at the skill players. But to me, if you look at the NFL and look at, guys that make the professional football, there's a lot of shorter guys that play at smaller levels, whether it's group of 5, whether it's FCS, that play receiver and running back, right? If you look at the rosters. But to me, the difference is up front. right? Like I think for us to be a explosive and a very efficient offense where, hey, we're staying in good down distance on first and second downs, like we got to be able to control the line of scrimmage. So, we got to find ways to run the football with success, putting our linemen in position, what they do well. And then also, the pass rushers, man, you're playing some werewolves at this level, right? Them D linemen are, first, second, third, round pick guys, man. We play some really good teams. So how do we help our line out, right? Like I'm not the type of coach where it's like, hey, man, he just got beat. Hey, you just got to win your one-on-one, like, hey, yes, guess what? We expect our guys to win our one-on-ones, right? But sometimes we have to do a good job as coaches of helping them win their one-on-one. And so protection-wise, we got to find a way to keep the quarterback clean. Because me playing quarterback back in the day, man, when I got hit a lot, I didn't play very good, right? And when I didn't get hit a lot, I played very well. So, I kind of understand that. If we can keep the quarterback clean and find ways to get the ball of his hand quicker, and not hold on to it, and take hits, we're going to play a lot better on offense.
With the quarterback situation being so competitive, how has Nate and Eli handled it personally, and how have they kind of bounced off each other?
I think they handled it really well. The one thing I like about them is they actually have a good relationship, in the meeting rooms and on the field, and they're competitive, right? Like, it doesn't matter if it's individual. It doesn't matter if it's Skelly, routes on there. Like, they're very competitive. They love to see the numbers every day. They love to see the completion percentage, right? And I keep up with everything, right? Like, I think that stuff matters, like, you got to keep up with who's the most consistent, right? And I think they, like I said, they're both pros. They both are competitive, and they both want to play. So I'm excited to see what they do on Saturday.
In terms of their skill sets, how different are they? Do they kind of bring different things to the table?
Yeah, I mean, they bring a little bit different things, they both do things really well, and they both things they have to work on, I think Nate is a pro in the playbook. I think he has a good feel of, the offense, and when he has a good pocket man, he throws a nice ball, and he can anticipate throws. You saw that last year, right? And then Eli, who's a guy who makes some plays, and he also has a good feel for what's going on and gets the ball of his hands, right? So, both of them mentally are really good, which is what I like. They both understand the system. They're starting to really understand what I want, right? Where I want the ball to go, what the expectation is in blitz and not blitz, right? And so, that's the biggest thing. Is I think that's where they're really similar is the mental part.
How important is that competitive edge for no matter what quarterback you throw out there to lead the team?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I know it's first game of the year, but. I think competing matters, like going in front of stands and playing in this offense. This is a different offense, right, than that's been here in the past, right? Like, who can go out there on Saturday and lead the team down the field, right? It's not the guy who throws for the most yards or has, the biggest plays, right? It's like who can we call it, be a first down maker, right? Lamar Jackson, right? Like, if you look at Lamar Jackson, like, people talk, but he gains first downs, right? You look at us at Western Carolina last year, and really the last 2 years, we were number one in the country in first downs gained, right? So, like, I want to see them go out and compete, but I want to see them gain first downs, right? Move the chains, right? I want quarterbacks that move the chains, because if we move the chains and get first downs, we're going to score points, right? So that's what we're looking for competitive-wise.
Dante Monfield's one of your captains. What have you seen from him throughout this offseason to develop into that type of leader?
He's been awesome. He's a guy who's high expectations for himself. He has high goals. He wants to be a day one, day two pick. He wants to play in the NFL, right? And he doesn't want to just play. He wants to be a great player. And so, it's been very good. He's been at Akron, and then he's been here with basically two different coordinators, I believe. Or no, he's been here, but now two different coordinators. But biggest thing with him is we had to gain his trust. He's a senior. It's his last year. He wants to have a great year, and I think he was very open, and we had a lot of open dialogue of things that he thought was good last year and not good last year, and things that I can do to get everybody connected, right? Because one of our biggest words that we have this year on offense is trust. Right? Like, if we're going to be a great offense and be efficient, we have to trust each other, whether it's the quarterback, O-line, coaches, receivers, right? And we have to trust everybody's going to do their job. And he's been a great person really since summer, really preaching that, right? Being unselfish, being a guy who's happy for his teammates if someone else catches a touchdown, right? Just being a great leader and understand, hey, when my ball comes my way, I'm going to make plays.
Another one of those guys that has been here longer than Kade and one of the big pieces of this offense, Gavin. How important is he going to be to this offense?
Very important. I mean, I call tight ends a unicorn, man. Tight ends are guys now with the way the NFL is and the way, they're starting to develop. former quarterbacks, former receivers, former athletes. Like Gavin's a guy who you got to move around and find ways to get him involved, right? And then also use him to get other guys open, right? We just have to do a good job of understanding what his strengths and weaknesses are and getting him the ball in certain situations. But he's awesome, man. He plays hard. He attacks every day. He just brings the right mentality, and he's one of the leaders of our offense. I mean, that's why he was voted captain.
You were a 4-year starter, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Did you ever have this quarterback question over your head when you were in training camp?
Yeah, actually on my first year starting, I was the backup. I was getting a lot of second string reps all of camp. I remember my first game, I was, I ended up getting starting that game, but we actually rotated every quarter. We rotated every quarter of that game. I ended up playing the best, and I ended up being the starter the next week and ended up playing really well my freshman year. And you're always competing, man. My redshirt sophomore year, I played really good early in the year. I had appendix taken out, right? And I missed 3 or 4 games, and I had a backup come in that was a transfer that lit it up, man, for a game. And you're as a quarterback, hey, you want to come back and play well, and obviously I got a chance to come back and played really well and had a good year. So you're always competing, you're always finding ways to get better, and and I think it matters.
Through that, what's been your message to the quarterbacks?
I think all it does is teaches you how to persevere, right? I want practice to be hard. I'm a coach. I'm gonna coach them hard now. I'm on them every day to be perfect. That's my expectation. Our expectation here is not to just be a good quarterback. It's to be an all-conference quarterback. It's to get drafted. This is what Pitt is, right? We've had good quarterbacks here, right? So there's the expectation here, and I'm gonna push them, and I want them to be mentally tough. We have to be mentally tough if we're going to win, make the ACC championship and have a chance to get in the playoffs, right? Like quarterback's got to be a mentally tough position. So if you can handle practice, if you can handle competition, if you can handle when things aren't always going good and make other players play better, we're going to be a better team.
Kade, what have you seen up to this point that gives you confidence that they trust each other, that they're ready for Saturday?
I just think, look at the last scrimmage. Really, if you think about the last scrimmage, man, the first scrimmage, we didn't have a lot of trust. We had some pre-snap penalties going on. Once we had that, I feel like we didn't find a way to hey, figure it out, right? When bad things happen, we have to figure it out. Does that make sense? And if you look at the second scrimmage, man, from the beginning, and when we did have some adversity through the middle of the scrimmage, when the defense started fighting back, right? We fought through that. We stayed together. It was great positivity. It was everybody cheering for each other. Our energy was great, and like they said, I've heard a lot of people talk, and kind of what the thought process is. We all know on this side of the ball, if we play consistent, if we play hard, and we play physical, and we do our job, we can be a really good offense. And we showed that in practice versus a really good defense. So when we do those things, we can be consistent. I think the players are starting to see that now because they've seen us go against a really good defense and have a lot of success.
How has Kenny Johnson's route running improved?
Kenny, Kenny's a guy who, he's actually been out really most of camp, man. He's kind of been back and forth with an injury, and really this last week is when we really got him back fully healthy. So, for him, it's just been mental, making sure that he's studying and knowing what's going on. He's been very much of a pro when it comes to getting his body back right after the injury with a hammy, and obviously watching film. And so coming back this week, he's been very good knowing what to do, focusing. He's a guy who he's still young, as much as we want him to be that NFL draft pick, he has the ability to do that. I really believe that. I really think he can be an NFL draft pick and play at the next level. But he's still young, and he has to get reps, and he still has a long ways to go. I think Kenny's the type of guy who, man, by the end of the season, man, if as long as he stays healthy and he's practicing and being efficient, he's gonna have a great year.
You said when you were a redshirt freshman in a quarterback competition, you went quarterback quarter. Back and forth. We have kind of a similar specific plan this weekend with Dane and Eli.
Me and coaches have a dialogue. We're always open, man. We've talked about the quarterbacks probably every other day during camp. We're always meeting, always. We talk about the stats, talk about what we saw on film. We're very open to everything. We haven't determined that yet. We still have one more practice. Like I said, this week has been big. Seeing how they handle the game plan, see how they handle the team when they're out there, seeing who's very efficient, and that's what we're going to do. Once we get to game time, we'll get close and we'll kind of have an idea how we want to do it.